Hi, I'm Adam Gaines, and this is Make Gains, the channel where we break down money, mindset, and moves you can make to level up your life. If you're about making gains financially, personally, or anything in between, you're in the right place. Today we're going to be talking about wealth and children. Let's get into it.
You were talking about how wealth goes away after a few generations and how you actually had a team that was studying Vanderbilt and a bunch of other generationally wealthy people to make sure that this doesn't happen with your family. What did you find out from these studies?
I interviewed this guy. His job is to deal with families that are worth $100 million and higher to make sure their kids turn out well. That's his job. And he's in Seattle. Why is that important? Amazon, Microsoft, a lot of billionaires, a lot of hectomillionaires. And I said, what was the common theme you realized when you got there to help the families? What was it, Patrick? 99% of the time it's too late. They call me once their kid is already a drug addict. They call me once their kid is already an alcoholic. They call me after they already got their kids 3 Lamborghinis. They're already flying all over the place on a private jet. It's done. There's nothing you can do about it at that time.
This is a problem for wealthy families, right? Doesn't apply to any of us. Well, I disagree. And I have seen this same thing play out with families that might not be hectomillionaires, but they might just be regular millionaires. Like, you'd never know if you weren't close with them that they have wealth. And, you might say, oh, that's not that wealthy anymore. No, but it's wealthy enough to where you can really do some damage with your children if you don't have proper boundaries set up, and if you're willing to spoil them in ways that lets them have a not normal expectation on how to handle money. The studies with wealth show that 70% of families lose their wealth by the second generation. Okay? So that's not lasting very long. 90% of them lose their wealth by the third generation, and then only 3% can keep their wealth through the fourth generation. So what is that saying? Well, it's saying that wealthy families don't do a good job of training up their children in how to either maintain wealth or how to create new wealth. So you've got this first generation that's creating wealth, and 100% of the money was created during that first generation. And then when their kids start to inherit it, they don't know how to handle money. And that is what is seen as a problem. But what PBD is talking about here is a little bit of a different scenario. So it's not just them losing wealth, but it's that they don't have good boundaries on money and relationships with money. So they're giving things to their kids that they haven't earned, which causes them to not respect it. And, I've seen this play out even in middle-class families, right? So this still applies. But I went to high school with kids who were given a brand new car for their first car. And if you knew someone like that, what was your experience? Put it in the comments. But my friends did not care about their car. They would dog their car out, and they didn't respect it. They're willing to drive at high speeds and willing to rev the engine and all that stuff. They just didn't care about it because they didn't have any skin in the game. Whereas for me, I had to pay for a portion of my car, and it made a big difference in the way that I treated it. I worked hard for that car, so I wanted to make sure it was taken care of. Now, that's just a small example, but whenever everything is provided and you don't have a relation in your mind, you don't have the relationship between work and the money that you're using, what we need to make sure that we're doing for our children is teaching them that money is an accumulation of effort. So we have to work hard to make our money, and then that money unlocks things for us. So it's like a video game, right? Once you level up and you get to where you're making even more money, then at that point you get to spend on certain things. But if you don't have a relationship between that work and the money, then that causes that spoiled mindset. So if you're giving your kid Lamborghinis or a brand new Toyota Camry that they didn't have to work for, then now their expectation on how money works is different than someone who started out working for their money. Okay, it's the same concept with kids who don't have to do chores. So if you don't make your kids be part of the family unit and understand that there's responsibility that comes with just being part of this family, then those kids start to view everything as this should happen because it's always happened. So I shouldn't have to participate in the things that make this household run because I've never had to. And so that same value system is going to apply whenever you start looking at money. I think Warren Buffett said it well, and his quote was, "Give them enough so that they can do anything, but not so much that they can do nothing." And that's in response to how much he's going to give his kids when he passes away. So Warren Buffett is one of the better money managers of our time. He's one of the wealthiest men around, and he is a billionaire, and he is leaving only 1% of his fortune to his kids, which is going to be millions of dollars, right? But they're not going to inherit billions. Instead, what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to give away that 99% of whatever he has whenever he dies. But one of the things that he said was super important is to make sure that there's early education around money, and that there are sound boundaries with money, which means that he wanted to make sure that his kids didn't have a limitless supply of money. He wanted to pay for their education, and he wanted them to be ambitious. So if you give someone so much money that they don't have to work, that's going to pull all of their ambition out. And that's one of the reasons why what PBD was talking about happens, right? So whenever you don't have things to work towards, you don't have an ambitious mindset, you're not earning anything in life. The dopamine that you get from a job well done is only going to come from those experiences, which is why there's all the drug addiction and stuff like that whenever it comes to those kids who have lots of money. Another thing that Buffett talked about was the focus on values, which we already spoke about briefly, but he emphasized hard work, humility, and smart decision making as the legacy. I think us as middle class parents should really focus on this one, and it's that it's not about the money. Okay, it's about working hard. It's about having strong morals. It's about making good decisions, and about what we can do to help others. And I think these are values that if we instill these values in our kids at an early age, that's going to serve them well as they get older. So some ways you can do that is you can have them earn their money. Whenever my kids were young, we heard someone talk about a give, save, spend strategy. What that means is if you choose to give your kids an allowance, it needs to be something that they're earning, right? So your kids should have responsibilities that are just part of being part of the family, right? So they might be doing things like making their bed, cleaning up their mess. It may be, when they're old enough, folding their own clothes and putting them away. When they're young, it's when you take off clothes, you put them in the hamper, stuff like that. And then it can be unloading the dishwasher. But then those extra things, so whenever your kids start wanting money, then you can say, hey, we have to earn our money. So whenever you go above and beyond, then you're going to get paid for that. So you get compensation for creating value. And so when your kids are doing things like cleaning up in the yard or helping with organizing the garage or whatever it is, right? You can give, or it could be vacuuming, could be taking away some of the chores that are a little bit tougher, but again, age appropriate. Then they get paid. And whenever they get paid, I think the good habit is to say, all right, here's what we're going to do with your money. You're going to get to spend a portion of your money. You're going to save a portion of your money for the future. And then you're going to give a portion of your money to others. And this helps them have that open-handed attitude towards money. And I think it instills strong values for them. So as they get older, they realize that they can help other people with their resources. And so I remember my kids being really excited to go give at church and know what some of that money goes towards, because they're actually able to help people with money that they earned with their hard work. And that instills a sense of pride in them and what they're doing. The other thing is it instills the financial discipline for them of having to save. Saving is important, right? We talked about that in our video earlier this week. But if you can instill those habits, that's going to really set them up for success in the future. I'm actually going to be putting out a video next week about how to help your kids be a millionaire. And it's something that they can do through working on their own. And it's really cool. And you definitely want to check that one out. But it's not a difficult thing to do, especially if they start young. Really instilling those values, having them making good financial decisions, and having them associate money with work and trading effort in order to get something is going to be what makes a huge difference in the way that your kids view money and in keeping those things that PPD was talking about from happening. And, the examples that I've talked about, I know people who have had kids who have got involved in drugs. I've known kids who have got involved in, partying too crazy at college to where it's a detriment to them. And most of the time, those were situations where the parent was enabling that kid by giving them money to fund all those things. Okay. And so that kid they grew up in a situation where anything that they wanted, they were getting. They weren't having to work for their money. And those values that the parents had that allowed the parents to earn that money was not passed on to the child. So I'm encouraging you guys to take those steps to instill those values in your kids while they're young. If they're already a little bit older, that's fine. You can always pivot. But the important thing is that you're working hard to instill those values in your children. That way they're managing their money well. You're setting them up for success when they get older. And they're also contributing and giving back. And that's ultimately what's going to give us that pride and the dopamine that's worthwhile on this earth. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video today. And please like and subscribe to the channel. It'll help us tremendously. Pass this video on to anyone who you know of who might benefit from it. And click that like and subscribe button again. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next time.